started with this piece of plywood that you can get from Lowe's, and I took a bowl and I just traced it using the edge of the plywood on the bottom of the circle, and then I took a ruler and made a triangle. And then I traced a second circle, and using my jigsaw, I cut out my pieces. I then found a smaller circle, traced that, and cut that out as well. And once I had my pieces cut, I started with some Wise Owl black paint, and this is going to be the backside of my project for this big piece. The smaller circle I painted black, and then the piece that had the triangle cut out of it, we used some Wise Owl Republic Red. I then set that aside to dry, and going back to the circle that I had painted with the Wise Owl black on the front, I flipped it over and used some Antique Villa. I let that dry, and then I took my buffalo plaid napkin, you want to remove the plies, and using some Wise Owl varnish, I put a layer down, laid my napkin on top of it, and then I took some more varnish and put that on top of the napkin. I then took a piece of saran wrap, laid it down, and just wiped on top, and this just helps eliminate any bubbles, and I removed any extra napkin. I went back to my other two circles that were dry. I gave them a nice sanding and applied some varnish on top of those. Once the buffalo plaid circle was dry, I gave it a little sanding, and then I glued my pieces together, starting with the small black circle. I attached it on top of the gingham using some wood glue, and then I took the red piece and attached that on top of the small black circle. And now you can see that we are putting together a ladybug, and using some foam dabbers with the circle end, I took some black Wise Owl paint and just made my spots. And I used another smaller dabber as well. And then I set that aside to dry. I decided to make a second ladybug, but a little smaller. So I went through all the same process as the first one. And once all the pieces were dry, I then glued this one together as well. You want to make sure you varnish all your pieces because this will be an outdoor project. The 1-hour enamel also works good. I took some small black beads. I needed 4 of them. And all I had on hand was white, so I painted them black. And once those were painted, I set them aside to dry. And I did another coat of varnish on top of my ladybugs. I then found this wired yard decor from Hobby Lobby. I got it 50% off, so I paid $4.50. And using some of the Kills chalk spray paint in white, I sprayed over the entire wire. I did the front side, and I allowed that to dry, and then I flipped it and did the back side. Once it was fully covered and dry, I brought it inside, and I applied some varnish to that as well. I allowed the varnish to dry. I went back to my ladybugs, and I had some black wire laying around, and I added the beads to the end of the wire, and I just twisted them on, and then I attached them to the backside using some hot glue. Once that was dry, I flipped it over, and then I repeated the same step with the smaller ladybug. Now for the smaller ladybug, I used a smaller bead, and you can also use E6000 to attach the wire. I then took my handheld stapler and some twine, And I just stapled a small piece of twine to the back of my little ladybug so then I could tie it to the wired yard decor. And I repeated the same thing for the bigger ladybug, but I did it in 2 spots. And I put them on a little bit of a diagonal. And I flipped it over and I tied it through the wire so that the ladybug was sitting sideways. Once that was attached, I put it aside. I had this small chalkboard, and I recommend you varnish it before you apply your stencil on top. And using a foam dabber and some antique Villa paint, I stenciled on the word hello. And once that was dry, I then covered that with varnish as well. And there you go. Now you just have this really adorable ladybug hello yard decor that you can place by your front entrance or in a garden way. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Paint products can be found on our webpage at chalkitupfancy.com. And don't forget, you can check out some other tutorials on our YouTube or webpage as well. Have a great day.